And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, broadcasting from Rockheads Comics and Games in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Today I'm going to take a look at Sleuth, a very old board game by a designer who is now passed, unfortunately, but Sid Sackson, famous designer of board games. This one is a mystery game where everybody's trying to deduce which one of the gems is missing from this deck of cards. And you'll have some of the information, but you won't have all of it, and you'll be trying to get more by asking other players using a set of clue cards that tells you what you may ask. And hopefully getting information based on what other people ask to other players. Real quick, why don't we take a look at what comes inside the box and how the game plays, and then I'll come back here and give you my final opinions on it at the end. Here you can see Sleuth set up for a 3-player game. Now this is a deduction game where you're going to be using cards, and you're going to be trying to figure out what gem is missing from the deck. And each player is going to have essentially 1/3 of the deck in a 3-player game, or 1/4 of the deck in a 4-player game, 1/5 of the deck in a 5-player game. You get the idea. So with more players it's going to get harder, but at the beginning you're going to remove one gem from this deck. I've done that here. Don't tell anybody, but it's the singular or solitaire blue diamond. Alright, everybody's trying to figure out which one's missing from the deck. In addition, since we have too many cards to divide this evenly, there's going to be 2 cards that are dealt into the center for everyone to see. So we have the red diamond pair and the yellow diamond solitaire that are open information to everybody. In addition, each player in the 3-player game is going to have an 11-card hand. You'll see it right here. This is this player's hand. They're going to look at it, and they're going to see they have all of these different gems. They have the red opal cluster, which is 3 opals, and the red pearl cluster, which is 3 pearls. A yellow pair, a pearl pair, a yellow diamond pair, and so forth and so on. Looking at all of their cards, they have diamonds and opals and pearls and all types of fun stuff. So, they're going to go and they're going to have a sheet that looks like this. And on the sheet, they're going to mark off everything they know. So they know the yellow diamond solitaire is not missing. They know the red diamond pair is not missing. And they'd find red diamond pair, and they'd mark it off here and say, okay, that's not missing. And yellow diamond solitaire, all right, we go to yellow diamond solitaire. They can mark that off. And they can also mark off everything that's in their own hand. But they're going to want to hide this from the other players, of course. Each other player is going to do the same thing, marking off these 2 and whatever in their hand. And from that point on, you're going to start the game. You'll see that each player also has 4 cards in front of them, and these are going to be what they use to ask questions to the other players. They can choose any other player, and they're going to use one of their cards, and that card is going to get information from the other player. So for example, this player over here could say, I want to know how many blue diamonds you have. They would play this into the discard pile, and maybe they're asking this player closest to the camera, and this player would look through, and they would find all of their blue diamonds. So let's see. Well, they don't have any blue diamonds, so they would say they don't have any. But if they did have any, let's say instead they ask this player over here. This player looks through their cards. Alright, they have a blue diamond cluster. That's all they have. Since this player asked about 2 things, blue and diamonds, this player is going to show the card to the player that asked. And that player is going to get to look at it, blue diamond cluster, and they're going to make a note on their own sheet. Now, if this player had asked this player and it came back with nothing, everybody's going to record, of course, that this player has no blue diamonds. Important information for figuring out later who has what. But after this player has seen that card, maybe they asked this one, they found the blue diamond cluster, they're going to draw up 1 card from this deck, and they're going to put it in their area, and that'll be another card they can use on their next turn. At this point, play would pass to the next player, and they have a choice of asking a question as well. Let's say maybe they ask about greens. Now this is only one type of information. It's not a number, it's not a gem, but it's just a color. So they ask somebody about greens, and they're going to say, okay, player over here, how many greens do you have? And so this player is going to look through, and he's going to say, okay, 1, 2. I have 2 green cards, and they're going to announce that information to everybody. Likewise, when this player asked, the player who showed them the blue diamond would announce that they had 1 blue diamond, and everybody's going to be able to know that information, but they may not know what the card is. When asking about a singular thing, like greens, you don't show the cards to the player. So he's just simply going to say, I have 2 greens, and everybody can record that information down. Maybe you can figure something out based on the greens in your hand and the greens that are in the center of the table. So, you're trying to piece together information based on what you ask. Certain cards are free choices, so this one is a free choice cluster. You can use this as just clusters, meaning you're looking for 3s of a kind, or you can use it as a free choice cluster, which is clusters and 1 other piece of information, be it the type of gem, either pearl, diamond, or opal, or the color, being blue, yellow, green, white. or red. So you can choose which ones you want to use. If you use it as a singular, you get to ask somebody for clusters. And you could say, all right, this player, I want to know how many clusters you have. And again, they'd look through clusters. There's 1, 2, 3. And they would announce to everybody that they have 3 clusters. If they said, I want to know about blue clusters, the player would look through and say 1 blue cluster, 2 blue clusters. And they would announce 2 blue clusters and show the blue clusters to the player who played the card. And again, everybody would mark their information. In this manner, you're going to keep going around the table, asking questions to players based on the cards that you have on the table, trying to get as much information as possible about what this missing gem is. At any point, when you think you know what that gem is, you may decide that you're going to basically take a guess at it. And you will circle the gem you think it is on your sheet here. At that point, you are allowed to look at the gem itself. So maybe you circle blue pearl. You think it's the blue pearl. And you look at it and you're wrong. At that point, you are out of the game, but you still have to answer people's questions because you still have a third of the information. If you were correct, you would win the game. If you had blue diamond, you'd win the game. And that player, of course, would be the winner. Now, the game gets harder the more people you have because you're dividing the information further and further. With this, you only have 3 people who have information. But with 5 players, it's going to be exponentially harder. You have 1/5 of the information divided over 5 different places, and you have to ask more questions. So if you're looking for a more challenging game, use more players. If you're looking for an easier game, try it out first with fewer players. But there you have it. That is Sleuth. There you have it. That is Sleuth. Now, this is a game that's going to vary in difficulty and probably in quality based on how many players you play with. If you play with 3 players, I don't think it's going to be that interesting. And that's the setup I showed you, but I was just trying to get the point across. With 4, it's not too bad, although the information is only split by 4s. When I play with 4, it seems to get the answer out there pretty quickly. It doesn't last too long, but it's not too short. And you can kind of get the answer, especially if things go right, relatively quickly. With 5, it starts to get difficult. And with 6 or 7, which the game plays up to, I think it's next to impossible to figure out what's going on in any type of reasonable time frame. So be careful with how many players you play here. You probably want 4 or 5, with 5 being the sweet spot as to the spread of information. The game is pretty basic. If you like things like Clue or you like deduction games where there's only like one thing you're trying to deduce, but there's a lot of information to try and figure out, I think you'll like Sleuth. As I said, it's an older game, but it's one that holds up pretty well. Very simple, but fun to play. So if that sounds good to you, check it out. That's Sleuth.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.